Hey, welcome to a sketchbook tour. This one is quite special because it's quite different because I had such a love-hate relationship with the sketchbook. It is not a sketchbook that I am going to be getting again. It's not a sketchbook that I think is quite right for me. I did manage to complete it in a month, and I am so excited to share with you the art that I created inside it. But I think even more than that, I'm really looking forward to sharing the lessons that I gained from this sketchbook. Made by Strathmore 500 series, it has 100% cotton, mixed media paper, it's acid free, archival quality, it has 64 pages and is 190 GSM. The one that I have is the soft cover version, which feels absolutely amazing, but it does get beaten up quite easily. So as you can see, like, it's just got marks all over it, and I don't mind it too tough. Even before I used it, it already had marks, so I knew that that was going to be the case. I feel like each sketchbook teaches us lessons. I completed this sketchbook in a month, and boy, did it teach me a lot. Did I experiment a lot, and did I have a really good time in it. So I just want to take a moment to share some of the lessons that I have got, or the main lesson that I got from this sketchbook. And then after that, I will share a bit of a closer look into each individual piece, where I created it, why I created it, what I used, and so on and so forth. Let me start off by saying that the sketchbook is true to its name. It can handle a range of different medias. It can handle pens, pencils, watercolor, gouache. Every supply that I used inside this sketchbook actually held up. It didn't necessarily wrinkle or warp. I just didn't like the way that it handled watercolors, and because watercolors is one of my favorite mediums, it made it very difficult for me to use this sketchbook. As a result of not enjoying the way that watercolor necessarily worked on it, it just meant that I completely dropped my expectations of this sketchbook. Honestly, like, I had the lowest of low expectations when it came to using it. And not only that, because you may or may not have seen in my previous video, and I'll link it for you, that I have over 100 sketchbooks. So I am determined to make my way through them. So I'd started it, there's no going back, and I just wanted to make my way as quickly as possible. And as a result of that, I just threw anything and everything at it. If I had an idea and I felt like being creative, I didn't have to think about, oh, where am I going to create it? I would just grab this sketchbook and be like, great, another page done. I wasn't trying to create masterpieces, and thus when I went out and I needed to sketch, I'd grab this sketchbook. And the expectation of I'm not going to create a masterpiece also came with this sketchbook. And so I felt so free. I felt so free to experiment, and before I knew it, I was looking forward to it. I was looking forward to spending time in the sketchbook, even though I knew I wouldn't necessarily be able to use the mediums that I normally use in the way that I normally use them. I was just looking forward to being able to make anything inside my sketchbook. And I feel like it's so important to find a space where you feel that way. The reason I'm not going to get it again is because I feel like the feeling is contagious, like, it just made me more excited to create and more excited to use paper that I enjoy, my favorite sketchbooks and my favorite papers, and it kind of lowered the barriers that I had put up between myself and actually creating any kind of art in the sketchbooks that I kind of felt I enjoyed more. So I feel like each sketchbook should serve you in some sort of way, but that doesn't always come easy. And it didn't come easy for me initially. And it doesn't always come straight away or as first nature. And if that's the case for you, that's fine. Persevere. It does get better. Sometimes it comes in a form of a sketchbook that you hate, but then you begin to love. So now that I've kind of shared the main takeaway that I hope you'll be able to carry with you as well, let's take a closer look at some of the individual pieces that I created. And I'm sure that you will see that this is quite different art for me, but I loved it, and I hope that you do too. So why is it a love-hate relationship? I think essentially I don't like hot press paper, which I guess is probably a surprise to no one. And this sketchbook has quite it has quite smooth paper, and as a result, I wasn't really enjoying the way that watercolors were working on it. And obviously watercolors and gouache are my main love. So it does say that you can use it for a range of different art supplies, and truly it is mixed media. So watercolor will work on it, gouache will work on it, pencils, pens, whatever art supplies you're thinking about it can probably withstand it. It's relatively thick, so it's not a bad quality sketchbook. I feel like it's important to get that out of the way at first. However, I initially noted like, okay, it has quite smooth paper, so I started things off by doing some sketches in here. I went to the Isabella plantation, which is in West London, and I just walked through the park and sketched the flowers that I was seeing. I got lost, but I had a good time and I really enjoyed my time there. One of the things that I really enjoy doing that I think is not only fun but helpful and can just lower the barrier to actually creating art is painting or sketching your art supplies. This is a piece that I actually created just before and also while in the airport on my trip to Nice. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it for you. I essentially went on a mini art retreat to Nice in France, and I had such a wonderful time, not only being there, not only dedicating the time to create art while there, but also just documenting it and putting it together for you. So as I say, I'll leave that video linked for you. But one of the fun activities that I like doing is just painting or sketching the art supplies that I'm either using, or I'm going to be taking with me, or I'm really enjoying at that moment, because then not only do I have a helpful resource where I can see the colors that I have, the swatches that I have, but also later on when I look back on this, I can see all the colors that I took with me, and I can see the colors that I was drawn to and the mixes that I was using over and over again. And it's little things that feel so strong, that I feel so strongly now, like, you know, of course I'll remember, but actually as time goes on and as our art changes and we change, things like that change. So, you know, every so often, if you don't know what to do, just sketch sketch out your art supplies and do some swatches. So that's essentially what I did here. And then I did like the laziest form of swatches, which ended up being one of my favorite pages. I just thought it was so cute and so beautiful, and that was just literally taking the paint and making a swatch on and letting it bleed into each other, letting it run into each other, and just going over the top with a white Posca to write down the different colors that correspond with this palette. And you can kind of see, I guess because it's 100% cotton watercolor paper, there weren't that many blooms or harsh edges, but it almost felt like the water just sat on top of the sketchbook. And I think that that was one of the things that I was struggling with. Following that, still in the airport, I sketched these planes on day one. So when we landed, we got there a little bit too early to check in. So we dropped off our stuff and then went and had burgers. And the view from there was stunning, so I did a quick sketch. And then on the way back, talk about seizing the moment, there was this super awesome jazz band that were playing, and the sun was shining, we could smell salty air, and everyone was really happy and just listening to this jazz band. And as soon as I see this, it brings me back to that. It just reminds me of the wonderful time. And this is a very different style to the way that I normally create, but I just really wanted to capture that energy and that fun element of just being there at standing. And, you know, sometimes I don't have the opportunity to bring out all my, you know, art supplies and everything. And sometimes you can just do enough to remember the moment and to savor it just using pencils or using whatever you have. On the way back still, so we're still not back to the hotel, we stopped and got some ice cream, and I quickly sketched the view. So this isn't actually the ice cream parlor, but rather it's the view from the ice cream parlor. And I just wanted to remember that we had ice cream there, and the sea was to one side and it was on the way to the hotel. So it's kind of like a little reminder to me, and that's the beauty of doing some travel sketches. We went on a tour the following day, I want to say, to Fragonard, which is a perfumery, and it smells, the sketchbook smells amazing as a result of having a little bit of the perfume inside the covers of the sketchbook. So it just reminds me of the trip and being there. So I just did some watercolor paintings. Well, first I did the sketch, and then afterwards, once I had more time, I went over it and completed it as a painting. This I painted while there, and that was just looking at the view. And if you've seen the video, you saw my sister teasing me because she was like, it's a hill. And I'm like, no, it will just remind me of doing the tour and stopping and getting to see the view. And then we also went out to eat, and I did the sketches initially and then I decided to paint these. But this, to be honest, I just wanted to leave as is, and it was at the Hippos. This was a bit of an accident. I ended up I bought a few art supplies here and they spilt over. So I basically like painted the whole page. And because it is the flash paint, it's actually going to be water resistant, so I will be able to paint on top of this should I wish. But that being said, the sketchbook kind of feels complete to me. Let me know, do you ever go back on your sketchbooks and complete these pages, or do you just like once you're done, you're done? These are the art supplies that I got while in Nice, and these are the pencils that I took with me to the trip. This is a view again from Nice, but this was when we were coming down, having seen the waterfalls, and we were just looking down on the sea, and we could see the stairs that we'd climbed, and again, just looking at it just brings such wonderful memories. And as part of one of the art challenges or doses of inspiration that I'm doing with my members on Ko-fi, we were doing master studies. And if you would like to be part of my membership and you want us to paint together, do live streams, do Zoom sessions, and get access to exclusive videos as well as talk to me on Discord, then you can definitely check out the link in the description, because it's probably something that you'll be interested in. It's a really lovely community. So here we did master studies, and they were timed, so don't judge me too harshly, but this was a master study of Van Gogh's painting, and this was a master study of Cézanne. And it's funny because it's through this art challenge that I realized that I actually really like Cézanne's artwork, and I didn't know that before. But I was looking through, museums and art books, and every time that I'd stop and be like, oh, I like this one or I like that one, it would be like Van Gogh or be Cézanne, Monet. So I don't know, I seem to be drawn to certain artists. Then again, another master study, very quick. This I don't feel like resembles doesn't resemble the master study at all, but it was a good time. And this was again during that live stream. No, this was during the Zoom session, because these the dose of inspiration, the art challenges span across 2 months. So quite often it just gives us the opportunities to do more than one session exploring something. So we again did a Cézanne master study here, and then a few days later we did one here. So different master studies, different paintings, but still similar vibe. And yeah, turns out I really like Cézanne. Continuing with the paintings from the Zoom session, together using watercolor, and also using, so here these are mixed media. So here I was just honestly putting any and all medias. These are primarily watercolors, and then once I'd done the watercolor layer, because again you must understand these were under timed conditions, so I think usually less than 10 minutes. So once I'd done the watercolor layer, I'd go over it and just add a little bit more texture with the Neocolors 2s, which are the water-soluble crayons. And I did the same with these, and these were just watercolors, but with all of them, actually, I should say, I was using flat brushes. And it kind of got me into the habit of using flat brushes. You may or may not know that I have quite an active community tab, and there I like to ask lots of questions, get to know you a bit better, and just know what the general consensus is in the art world. So one of the questions that I asked was, when you don't like a sketchbook you're using, what do you do? Because essentially that's what I was experiencing here. And the results were really interesting. A third of people said they abandon it, just leave it incomplete. A third of people say they try to use it for other mediums and scrapbook, which I guess is what I did. 25% said they try to finish it as quickly as possible, so maybe that's closer to what I actually did. 5% said they tried to modify it, maybe add some gesso to it to make it more, user friendly for what they want it for. And then 4% said other. So if ever you are curious, bored, you want to have a look, want to engage in the community, then definitely be sure to check out my community tab and see what other people are saying and doing and experiencing. One of the other things that I asked was like, how many sketchbooks do you have at the moment? And the most popular answer was between 2 and 10. Obviously, I am in the minority. And then another question was around, what is your current favorite go-to sketchbook? And surprisingly, other was the most popular response with 47. So you can check out the comments to see what people said. I say I'm surprised is because usually I'm a lot better at like guessing or like my favorites tend to align with other people's favorites. And I was just, I was off on this one, but I'll probably repost it again. So yeah, check out the community tab. I think that one thing that is clear for me when I look back on this sketchbook and this whole experience is that it helped me shift my focus from creating good art to just creating art. And honestly, I found it very liberating. I was able to be a lot more playful in my art. And I think that sometimes we need a space for that and we need a time for that, especially if you are, say, like me, where you are a hobby artist. The reason that you're turning to art is for relaxation, for fun, for peace, for, you know, all the good feelings. I find that despite that, a lot of us put all this undue pressure on what our sketchbook should look like and what our art should look like. And this sketchbook really helped me get away from that by just helping me focus on creating art irrespective of irrespective of what it's like. I was just doing paper mileage because I just wanted the sketchbook to be done, and it really got me excited to use other sketchbooks that I had that perhaps I just, you know, I'd been quote unquote saving because they felt too precious or because I didn't feel like my skills were good enough yet. And following this, I was just really, really excited to just get straight into them. And I feel like I felt a similar way about the Royal Talon sketchbook. And if you haven't seen my ugly sketchbook tour, I'll leave that video linked for you as well, because I feel like if what I'm saying resonates with you and it's something that you struggle with as well, then you will probably enjoy that video as well, because I share some things that helped me get closer to getting over it. But just the whole thing of like swatches and drawings and pencils and pens and everything, as a result, I finished this whole sketchbook in a month. And my aim was to finish it, but it's not like I was timing myself. It's just that any opportunity I had to paint or to sketch or to draw, I would take it, I would use it, and I would pick up the sketchbook. This is again another Ko-fi Zoom session, and this one was focused on painting landscapes. Then here I got some tempera paint sticks, which are like children's art supplies, but they were just really fun to play around with. And this is where you see that I really threw myself into experimentation and into just trying out different things and just, I guess, getting that paper mileage in. And so I got those colors, and then I tried it out on this page. And the thing that initially struck me is that it dries matte. So as soon as it's dry, it's not transferring. It's like this feels like the normal paper as opposed to Neocolor 2s. So when you see here, the transfer here is not from the actual tempera paint sticks, but rather from the Neocolor 2s that I layered on top, because then I was kind of curious to know what would layer on top of what. And here I tried to explore using them. I painted the same reference. So this is the same reference 1, 2, and 3 times. I quite liked the reference and I wanted to see how many different ways I could paint it in. So here I just had the background of the paper, whereas here I did an underpainting with the Posca pens so that it's slightly yellowy, as you can see, and I just thought it's going to make the painting a little bit warmer. And then I layered on top using the Neocolor 2s, but also using those tempera sticks, and that's what I've kind of written here. So here for this painting I use this as my reference, and then for this painting I use this as my reference. So it's almost like a chain reaction. Why? Because why not? A lot of this sketchbook was a why not do it, you know? This was during a live stream where I was trying to explore using the tempera sticks, but also using a range of different medias, and that's basically what I created. Very, very different to my usual style. And sometimes I look at it and I love it, and other times I look at it and I'm like, what was going on? Like, there's so much going on. So it really does depend on my mood that day. But you know, there's like textures that I was playing with and colors that I was playing with and adding neon colors and just so much. And then here just doing a few swatches and leaning into this style a bit more, but trying to have, I guess, a bit more control. Still having lots of fun with colors. Like, I feel like you can tell that I'm just getting looser and looser the further into the sketchbook we're getting. And that's because, you know, I realized that I don't really enjoy using the watercolors in it. I can't explain it. I'm having a good time. My way of then getting the best out of both worlds was just trying to figure out, how can I use this paper in a way that works for me, or how can I finish this sketchbook? And some of the pieces in this sketchbook are truly some of my favorites. Like, I just had so much fun doing these two, and they're so playful and so nice. And then also this one, I just again love all the colors that I included and the feel and the playfulness, and I just I just had a wonderful time creating this. And this here says I've got a piece that makes no sense, and that's because essentially as I was painting these, I was listening to gospel music and I was just laying down marks where it felt right and doing different bits of, mark making and scratching things off and adding pen lines and just a whole bunch of experimentation that I truly, truly, truly enjoyed. Then continuing on, heading towards the end of the month, I painted this reference and then recreated it again, but this time using an array of different medias, again using the tempera paint sticks. And I feel like although they also have their limitations, there was something so playful about them, and I can show you what they look like. They are just literally kiddie art supplies, and there's something so playful about them. They, as I say, they have their limitations. They don't necessarily blend as well, but just as a way to add pops of color and to just play around and to make different textures and to lay them down and then kind of scratch them off, a whole bunch of fun. And then this piece, I actually created this at the same time. So like I just, went across both pages as I did, and it's from the same reference. So initially I was doing the same piece on both sides. I have no idea why. And then at some point I was like, oh, I'm just going to act like it's one giant landscape. But yeah, using a range of different medias. At this point I started adding white lines and experimenting with, still continuing to experiment with textures and with lines and with using different materials and still using the tempera sticks. And I continued that. This was carrying forward all this play that I had from here and taking it to painting from life. So I was actually painting in a park and observing my surroundings and trying to recreate them in this really loose and playful abstract style that I had developed as a result of all this play. And then here in this piece, I bought myself some flowers and I had done a painting of it, but the painting was so abstract that I was like, you know what, when I look at it, I'm not going to remember these flowers and I'm not going to remember the symbolism of them to me. So as a result, I ended up doing a few sketches because that's what this paper I feel actually excels at, and that's maybe like, pen like pens, inks, sketches, because it's a very smooth paper. So I did a few pen sketches of the floral bouquet, and then I also did this painting with all its colors is representing the same bouquet. And as you can see, completely different style. So I started off with just using watercolors, and then from there I added a whole bunch of different medias, and I did like mark making with dots and making little patterns on leaves and drawing and using Neocolor 2s and the tempera sticks and just really having a really nice chill, as you see, an after work chill session. And then this was a Ko-fi Zoom session that we did where we looked at references from my time in Nice and recreated them. And again, I was just really leaning into this abstract style, but even more so. So I don't know if you see what I see when you when you look at these paintings, but this is essentially the waterfall that was in Nice. This is the path to the waterfall that was in Nice. And it's funny because I showed it to my sister and she immediately recognized the places that I had recreated, whereas for me it's obviously quite abstract with quite a lot going on. But I love that she could see, and even with this same, like that was the view coming down that I showed you earlier. So this view coming down, if you looked, depending on where you were, you could see the building in some places, but if you kept looking towards the right hand side, you couldn't see the building anymore. And that's what I painted here. And again, the path. This was from our time in Monaco, and here you could see the ocean, but there was almost like a frame created by nature as a result. So again, I showed it to my sister and she was like, yeah, she remembers it because she actually took the reference photo for me. And again, continuing with the abstract landscapes, getting a bit lighter. And then that is it, my friends. So as you can see, this was just a sketchbook of complete and utter experimentation. If you've been here long enough, then you know that I usually tend to paint florals and yes, I do landscapes as well, but most of the time, a lot of the time, I do abstract florals with watercolors. And I feel like this sketchbook pushed me outside my comfort zone because it didn't feel like the right place to do that. And so it became a place where I could just play and experiment, and where my aim was not to create good art, it was just to create art. And I hope that you find a place where you feel like that, where you actually feel free to just create art, and whether the results are good or bad or whatever, that's, by the by. What counts is how you feel and whether you enjoyed it, and I guess why you are creating the art. So if you're still watching, you are a real MVP, and I really, really, really appreciate you. Let me know that you're still watching by telling me what sketchbook you are using at the moment, if you're using one. And if you're not using one, you can let me know that too. If you enjoyed this video, then you will definitely love this series of next ones, where I highlight even more of my sketchbooks and my amazing time in Nice. You won't regret it. Go and watch it. Thank you so much for watching. See you later. Bye.